to 6 and 6, where we cover 6 stories from around the world in 6 minutes or less. With that said, start your timer. Madagascar and Canada have resumed free trade talks in negotiations as of August 25th, 2025, after previous talks were delayed by the pandemic and political changes. The discussion aims to enhance economic ties between South American trade bloc, Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay, and Canada by addressing tariffs, market access, and bilateral trade regulations. Both parties see potential for mutual benefits and leveraging their respective economic strengths. From Reuters, quote, a potential trade agreement between Madagascar and Canada could significantly benefit both regions by facilitating access to new markets and reducing trade barriers. The discussion comes at a pivotal time when global economic dynamics are shifting post-pandemic, and both parties see the value in partnering more closely to foster growth and stability. Next, we travel across the ocean to Botswana, who has declared a public health emergency due to critical shortages of essential medicines across healthcare facilities. The crisis stems from budget constraints and procurement challenges, leaving patients without necessary treatments. The government is actively seeking international aid and working to streamline procurement processes to address the urgent medical supply issues. From Reuters, quote, in recent months, medical facilities around Botswana have faced an increasing shortage of essential medicines, leaving many patients without treatment for chronic and acute health conditions. This situation has reached a critical level, prompting the government to declare a public health emergency, the Ministry of Health representative in Botswana said. End quote. And then we travel back across the Atlantic, where the trial of Ismael El Mayo Zambada, a former leader of the Sinaloa cartel, has pleaded guilty to U.S. drug and money laundering charges. His surrender represents a major victory against drug cartels, as he was one of the last remaining leaders responsible for smuggling massive quantities of illicit substances into the United States. The plea agreement is expected to provide critical insights into cartel operations and potentially lead to further arrest. From Reuters, quote, Zambada's decision to plead guilty underscores the intense pressure law enforcement agencies have placed on the cartels and highlights the United States' relentless pursuit of high-profile criminal figures internationally. His cooperation is anticipated to assist in breaking down complex trafficking channels that have previously evaded capture and prosecution. End quote. Next, we travel across the Pacific to South Korea, where their central bank maintains its benchmark interest rate of 3.5% in August, reflecting a cautious approach amid moderating inflation and economic challenges. The economy is projected to grow 1.4% this year, slightly lower than the previous estimates, primarily due to weak semiconductor exports. The central bank anticipates potentially resuming an easing cycle in the fourth quarter of 2026. From Reuters, quote, we decide to keep the interest rates unchanged for now as the global economic uncertainties continue to weigh heavily on our domestic economy. Our primary focus remains on ensuring inflation is controlled when providing the necessary support to spur our economic growth, a representative from the Central Bank of Korea said. Next, we travel south to New Zealand, where their central bank has proposed reducing capital requirements for lenders starting in 2025, aiming to ease financial conditions and promote economic stability. This strategic move seeks to balance ensuring banks can absorb potential losses while preventing overly restrictive lending constraints. The proposal reflects an adaptive approach to managing the financial sector resilience in a challenging economic global landscape. It's what they see they have to do. From Reuters, quote, our intent is to promote financial stability by ensuring that banks have the capacity to absorb losses, but we're also committed to ensuring that the regulatory settings do not unnecessarily constrain their ability to lend. And finally, we travel to Europe, where the French government is facing a potential political crisis as Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne approaches a crucial confidence vote for the 2025 budget plan. Following the loss of an absolute majority in Parliament in 2022, Macron's reform agenda is at risk, with opposition parties seeking to challenge government policies. The confidence vote could potentially trigger government resignation or parliamentary dissolution, creating a significant political uncertainty. From Reuters, quote, the stakes could not be higher for President Macron. Should the confidence vote fail, it would plunge the French government into a period of uncertainty and possibly instability, end quote. And of course, if you want to read any of today's articles in their entirety, you can go to the links in the description below, the like and subscribe button. Also down there, you can find the podcast on Spotify, Podcast, Podvine, as well as the Twitter handle @YourDailyFlip, where I post links to these episodes that come out on Tuesday and Thursday, as well as the normal podcast that comes out on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, a little bit more U.S. focused. So with all that said, there's only one more thing to say. Stay safe. Don't die.